Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great Game Master, How to Be a Great GM, How to Be a Great Player. I've combined them all together in this particular episode because this episode, of course, is our monthly answering your questions that you've posted to the channel and that don't get converted into longer videos later on down the line. So these are your questions in no particular order, and because, well, I thought it's players and GMs who should ideally be watching both of these videos, let's put it together in one, because we've got so many other bits and pieces coming out tomorrow, such as the t-shirt winner competition announcement thing. And if I put more words together, a sentence make, it will possibly just put them in order right. So yes, tomorrow we will be announcing the winner of the t-shirt slogan competition, as well as the 4 runners-up, each of which will get a copy of the t-shirt once it has been manufactured, and some other interesting news about more world travels and a certain little island that I will be going to on the exact opposite side of the planet to where I am going in October. So be sure to join us tomorrow if you may or may not happen to live somewhere near Japan. Now, moving on, questions that you asked. On the player video, Player Etiquette, Isaac McManus writes, one question, what's your opinion on adding rules as a player to help in immersion? For example, in a player character's backstory, they were attacked by a highly powerful sonic creature. Not sonic, psionic creature. This results in, when they are placed in a situation where they must make an important decision for the group, they have a chance to become ethereal for a random number of hours or even transform into a GM-controlled evil character with godlike abilities. This whole process results in them being a psionic character able to learn all kinds of magic. The player can roleplay this very effectively. Would you be okay with this as a GM, and or would it be bending the rules and unfair? Well, Isaac, I'm afraid my immediate response would be, this is going to be very disruptive to the rest of the group, and it's going to give you a whole lot of abilities which your example doesn't cover. If you become ethereal, there are a whole bunch of rules, depending on which system you're using, which will now be applicable to your character. You would be able to move through walls, through doors, through traps without any problems whatsoever. And although there are certain consequences, like becoming a GM-controlled evil character with godlike abilities, I'm not sure that offsets the benefits that you would be getting. If you came to me with this kind of request, I would make it perhaps a random effect that took place when your character is under stress over which you had no control. I would also say that you would have no mobility as an ethereal creature. You would simply be stuck where you are, but slightly out of phase with the rest of the world. Now, this may seem a little bit unfair, but at the same time, I'm afraid even the very best role players will be tempted to use this during situations where it could be advantageous to have no effect from physical attacks or other various different types of situations where the character might take damage. So in my opinion, even if you are a very good role player, this would simply become too gimmicky over time to make it something that I would encourage or actually allow within my game. That would be my final decision on that one. What the rest of you think? Leave your comments below. Frostile, I am frostile towards you. Not only am I cold, but I am also angry. Frostile writes, this session I rolled 4 1s and never rolled higher than a 10 throughout a 5-hour game and was unable to do anything the entire time. I got very bored and annoyed, including being stuck to the floor and blind during an entire fight that happened. My question is, what do you do in these situations? I found myself going for my phone and just detaching for the rest of the session. So, what are your thoughts? I have also suggested this as a topic to the website, just FYI. Well, Frostile, firstly, there is a video called How to Engage or How to Be Engaged, and that video speaks specifically to what to do when you're not involved in combat. So I'm not going to go too much into the answer as to what you should be doing whilst your character is fumbling around and generally suffering because of poor dice. I would suggest, of course, that you take those dice and put them in the deep freeze for a period of about 10,000 years, that in that period of time some other poor gamer can find them and then have a very bad game. Generally speaking, though, when the dice are against you and the story is just not moving forward, the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, would be to do stuff that doesn't involve dice rolls. Look for something that engages you, whether it's running around helping your fellow players' characters, or whether it is simply trying to ask questions of NPCs and things that don't require you to make rolls. That's what I would do. If the dice are against you, the dice are against you. And I will raise my hand immediately saying that, yes, it's winter, but also that the dice do occasionally just not like you for a period of time. I don't know why. It just seems to be a statistical coincidence that happens far too often for those random dice that we so love. Last question for player etiquette. Dalton Prather says, not to mention bath. For some reason, people who play role-playing games do not feel the need to bath. It is terrible having to sit at a table with 4 or 5 people who do not wear deodorant or shower regularly. No one wants to play with Stinkicus, the smelling half-orc. Stinkicus, I think, would be quite an interesting character. But as for players, yes, player etiquette includes personal hygiene. And it is often a very delicate and very difficult subject to broach, except that several other people responded to this particular mention from Dalton here and said, you just have to be blunt and say, would you please go and bath or find someone else to play with? Personal hygiene, what can you say? We all sometimes go through it. Less salt in your diet. That was the lesson that I learned when I was young. Moving on, how to create plot twists on the fly. This received a lot of responses and a lot of commentary and all sorts of things that I wish I could have participated in, but just simply don't have the time to do. I did, however, read all the comments, and I appreciate and respect almost all of the topics that were postulated and positioned underneath this particular one. Silent Shadow writes, question for the group. I am a new DM, a sci-fi campaign. I am moving my PC from one-shot style to open world. Open world is a prison planet. 3 factions are racing to leave the planet. I go back and forth on if the master plot of that nature is strong enough to stand up. How do you know if the master plot is strong enough to hold your campaign? Or does knowing that just come with time, experience, and practice? Well, that's a fantastic question, and it's almost a video on its own. Except your master plot needs to obviously ring true to that old tenet of someone wants something badly and is having difficulty getting it. Provided that they are continuously having difficulty getting it, and that they continuously want it and will never give up trying to get it, you've got a master plot. Now, that master plot is going to evolve over time. It's not necessarily going to be fixed, because if you look at this particular video on how to create twists on the fly, you will notice that things are being added to that master plot that are subtly changing it in different directions. So here are your 3 factions that are on the planet that are trying to get off of it. We assume that it's 2 different types of criminal element and then a 3rd element who are, of course, innocent and need to get off of the planet for some emergency or drastic reason to try and save the world, or the universe in this case. Whatever their motivations are, the master plot about keeping them there, or whatever your master plot is, as a matter of fact, needs to boil around that. And of course, like the TV series Prison Break, you need to figure out what's going to happen after they leave the planet. Or is that the end of the campaign? Well, that's up to you. But to answer your question, it is a case of experience, learning what could or couldn't work, but it's also a case of adding in as many subplots as twists and building and seeding your stories as you can, and watching that master plot evolve and grow over time. Tim Neves writes, are cliffhangers bad, and why? I would say cliffhangers are pretty good. I always try and end my session on a cliffhanger, or at least on a high note or a low note, to make sure that my players want to come back to find out what happens next. So cliffhangers are, in my opinion, a good thing. Of course, you have to make sure that they don't feel forced, And sometimes you just don't get a moment where there's a cliffhanger. The party decides they're going shopping, and at best you can say, there's a sale on at Macy's. End. Well, maybe that's not the greatest cliffhanger that could exist, but I would say cliffhangers are good. There's not too much to go into cliffhangers. Cliffhangers deal with pace and with rhythm and with timing, and there's plenty of videos on the channel that deal with those. So getting to a cliffhanger point is something of a bit of a balancing act in terms of experience with your timing and with making sure that you do get to a point that is satisfactory to end on, and of course matching that with the time that you have allocated. And that speaks to the 1-2-1 and the 1-2-2 method, which is also on the channel. So we're going to have a look at those. Stranded Starfish, who is never afraid to disagree with me, and who's also a Star Trek fan, so that's why, I like you. Stranded Starfish says, never, ever, 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 ever leave yourself needing to invent a plot twist on the fly. Proper plot preparation prevents piss-poor performance. And just because I can do it, proper plot preparation prevents piss-poor performance. So, while Stranded Starfish is busy alliterating himself all over the place, or herself for that matter, the trick with plot twists and trying to plan them is that sometimes you just start an adventure and it goes off in a different direction. So a plot twist makes sure that it remains exciting. Alternatively, something that you have planned as a plot twist because you think it's great, that players have already anticipated, in which case it's not so much of a plot twist as a damp squib. So in order to avoid a damp squib, you might need to add a plot twist to your plot twist to make it a little bit more twisty. That would be twistick, or something like that. So the idea of the plot twist on the fly is not lack of preparation. It is sometimes compensation for someone who has prepared and has failed to prepare correctly. Then we move on to accents. Accents. Sean Daly, I assume that's how you pronounce it, Sean Daly, because I can't believe it would be Cian? No, Sean. Sean Daly writes, if you want to hear an Irish accent, let me try that again without slurring. If you want to hear an Irish accent, I can send you a clip of me talking. I would love that. As a matter of fact, and this is just buried in here for those of you that have watched, I would thoroughly encourage, love and adore you all if you were, from all over the wonderful world that we are in, record a clip of you speaking in your local language and tell us why exactly you think it sounds the way it does. So I can tell you, for example, the reason why my voice sounds the way it does is because I was raised in a very small little town that called itself the last bastion of England, even though it's in the southern hemisphere and in South Africa, where everyone was encouraged to speak correctly and to pronounce their words appropriately. I was also raised by a grandmother who believed that the British Empire was the greatest thing since sliced bread and would often cause me to have to recorrect my sentences when my diction or my pronunciation was inappropriate to the moment. And that has instilled in me a great sense of purpose, as well as watching things like Monty Python and, of course, our saviour John Cleese. All right, now that brings us to the end of the Q&A from this month. I hope it has been informative, engaging, enlightening, and perhaps a little bit inspiring. And if you missed any of those videos, of course, you can go and have a look at them on the channel. They're all there. And until next time, I wish you the very happiest of gaming, of playing, of commenting, of liking, of subscribing, of heading on over to the website, www.greatgamemaster.com, of joining us as a Patreon, on engaging with us on Facebook. In other words, just go and have a lot of fun talking about our wonderful hobby, or actually playing our hobby.